So let's officially call this meeting to order, and we'll do introductions, starting with Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Austin Quinn Davidson.
Pete Peterson.
Barbara Jones.
Forrest Dunbar.
Amy Solberg.
All right.
Carl Haveman, observed.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we don't have the information to talk about ranked choice voting today, so we'll have to put that on the agenda for next month. So let's see if we have something, we have about Title 28, is that what you want to do next, Barbara, or do you want to talk about charter changes?
We could talk about the charter change group. I don't think we've talked to you about that. Actually, the charter change group is Ms. Quinn Davidson, Mr. Dunbar, and Dean Gates, and myself. And we finished a draft of the proposed charter change, and it is just sitting in the queue. We have another meeting scheduled, or we will schedule another meeting. The plan was to meet again in December and make a decision how to proceed. The issue is, do we want to propose a charter change? And that's a policy decision for the potential sponsors, Ms. Quinn Davidson and Mr. Dunbar. And if they decide to go forward, it'll be back before you probably in December. It's a real simple change.
Yep.
And so this would, something that would have to go to the ballot for the voters to make the change, is that correct?
Yes.
Because it's a charter change, yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions about that item?
I guess Mr. Chair.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Just quickly, just agreeing with Barbara that I think we'll just evaluate in the coming months, and then we'll bring it back to this committee and decide whether we want to move forward with it.
All right. We've got a couple more meetings yet
Yeah.
before January, so
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you. All right, well, so do you want to go to Title 28?
Yes. So for Title 28, we are continuing to meet almost weekly. We had a couple of delays because of moose hunting season and the RCA hearings. So Dennis Wheeler and Ms. Wynn Pearson and Dean are on that drafting work group. So, but we are continuing to meet. We are continuing to review Title 28. I can tell you we have gotten pretty far, and it looks like we are on page 71 of 85. Oh, no, I'm going to even go farther than that. We are on page 73 of 85, and it's double spaced. So there's very little left in our review. So we should have something for you probably in November to start having the committee slogging through that, because it's 83 pages of edits. So that's as far as the Title 28 working group. The signature requirements on the envelopes, we have, the group has agreed on some updates to the oaths of office on the envelope that we're going to propose. I think I've talked to you about it before. I've given you like this draft, but we have some edits, and I said I'd email it to you, and I haven't done that for a month because I've been busy. And so I will get that to you. We have to order new envelopes for the next election. I think we have 0 envelopes at our vendor, so we have to order them, and the envelope is changing.
Right.
The vendor is not going to have a window envelope anymore. So we just wanted to get this done in the fall. So I'll email this to you. This is not a code change. This is just, we're trying to help voters understand when they need a witness signature, and we want to do more to verify witness signatures. So we're upping the ante on witnesses and just trying to streamline the envelope a little bit.
And there was a question about voters who were outside the state of Alaska and maybe possibly outside the country getting a problem getting an Alaskan to witness their ballot. Have we addressed that in any way?
So, through the chair, Mr. Chair, that issue is a good question. That is not an envelope question because voters that are out of state or out of the country, let me just give you an example. If you are out of state or out of country and want to return this envelope, you just sign it and send it back and we're going to check your signature. But the voters you're talking about are fax and email voters,
Okay.
electronic voters. And Ms. Quinn Davidson has a constituent that's had that question. We have it in the queue here. I can tell you that we are looking at that change. And let me see if I can tell you a little bit more about what our proposal is. This is going to be under voting by facsimile or email. It's 2860.060. And some people would say only a mother or my mother could figure this out because this is so complicated. Okay. This is going to be voting
You might be on your
by-
own here. Are you a mother, Amy?
I am.
Okay,
Yes.
well, good thing we have you two.
Okay, so, but, I mean, this is really, so, voting by facsimile or email. So, a ballot that is completed and returned by the voter by electronic transmission must, and this is the second section, it currently says, contain or be accompanied by a statement executed under oath as to the voter's identity. The statement under oath must be witnessed by one United States citizen who is 18 or older. My notes say, okay to eliminate. And our response and comment here is we can eliminate this because absentee by mail is not witnessed because we have signature verification. So it will contain a statement that says, I understand that by using electronic transmission to return my marked ballot, I am voluntarily waiving a portion of my right to a secret ballot to the extent necessary, but accept that my vote may be held as confidential as possible, followed by the voter's signature and date. So our decision was to eliminate that. I think we have a couple of notes here that say, to the extent possible to ensure the accuracy and integrity and secrecy of the ballot process. We're going to have something that says we only accept certain file formats, PDF, JPEG, TIFF, and the purpose of that is to improve their security so I think we've got it. Do you think that will work for your constituent?
Yeah, sounds
Good.
good.
Good. All right.
Mr. Chair, there was some other comments. I believe Mr. Weddleton talked to you about not mailing ballots to out-of-state voters. And that is not possible. You may have an out-of-state address and still be a registered voter in Alaska. You could be on medical leave, you could be going to college, you could be, you could
Snowbird.
You could be a snowbird. So there is, the idea was that you would opt in to get a ballot. And I would just not recommend that. That's the whole idea of vote by mail. It's supposed to be easier.
Right.
So we are not exploring at all eliminating people from the list that have an out-of-state address.
Well, if they register to vote in another state, some of the states will let the state of Alaska know, and some, not all of the states do, though, if I'm understanding correctly.
Well, I think the bigger problem is that I think we're part of ERIC, but I think I'd have to get the state to tell you that. Just because you register to vote in another state doesn't remove you from the state of Alaska voter registration list. My understanding, and Amy can help me with this, is you have to affirmatively say, please cancel my registration.
I see. And so that's one of the reasons why we are sending those cards out. And when we send the cards out, those go to the out-of-state addresses as well, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And so that gives them an opportunity to let us know that, oh, yes, I'm living in North Carolina now and I'm voting
Cancel.
here.
Mhm.
So
Cancel
they
my
have the list.
registration, right?
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about that particular item? And I know that when we were talking about the envelope, we were talking about that some people were objecting to the fact that their signature was out there and available for maybe postal workers or other people to see, and they were worried about someone stealing their identity by being able to copy their signature or something. And is there some sort of flap you were talking about putting on the envelope to cover up the signature? And if we decided we're doing that for sure?
Well, we have decided we're not doing that for sure.
Okay.
And I will tell you why, and it's because it would cost at least $30,000 to purchase the equipment to do that, because the flap has to be removed. And the system that we has a flap remover, but we didn't purchase it. So in the alternative, we could have workers do it. It would probably be less than $30,000. But I think Mr. Dunbar was aware of this last year. Remember when we're processing envelopes? We're processing yesterday's envelopes, and we're going to get those through the system, and we had a number by 2 p.m. If we had a flap, it's going to be not yesterday's, it's going to be the day before's. It'll delay us a whole nother day. And because you have to have a person tearing the flap off. Our position in elections right now is we got a legal opinion before we ever started this that it's okay to have that signature exposed. It's not a violation of law. I recognize there may be a moral or other issue with it, that people don't like that. But I think the other important thing is last year, Dropbox exceeded mail. And we think that that is going to continue to happen, that Dropbox will exceed mail. And if people are concerned about the signature being exposed, they can put their envelope in a Dropbox, and it's confidential only to election workers then.
Yeah, I actually had not a constituent of John's, actually, who lives down off of Huffman. It was a former good customer of mine that emailed me saying that he was upset that he had to sign the outside of the ballot. And I said, well, if you're worried about, exposure to your signature dropping in the Dropbox, he said, well, that defeats the whole purpose of vote by mail. He said, it's more handy for me, and he lives about a block from the post office down there in Huffman, to go to the post office and drop my ballot in the mail, and you didn't live very close to anywhere where there was a Dropbox.
Well, I will tell you that there is now a national Vote at Home movement, and the group is called Vote at Home. The state is calling it Vote at Home. Most people are not calling it vote by mail because most people don't vote by mail. The issue is we have universal ballot delivery by mail, but
Vote by box.
it's please vote by box. So you can let your voters know that it doesn't defeat the purpose of vote by mail. Vote by mail is just how it's delivered. They can return it in a variety of ways: email, fax, Dropbox, come in person, or by mail. And we're finding that by mail is the least number of returns. It's becoming the lowest number.
Well, and, you know, we keep adding additional drop boxes to make it more convenient for people to drop them off anyway. So we have 2 additional drop boxes this year, is that correct? Amy?
Yeah, through the chair, so we do have 2 additional, so we'll have 16 drop boxes for the 2020 election.
So that's fantastic. I wanted to note for the record that Mr. Weddleton has joined us.
I paid for ranked choice voting.
Oh.
Should I give a quick update on that, Mr. Chair? Because
Mhm.
Forrest wasn't here for that
This other
either.
stuff's not important. Totally rebrand to vote at home, because that's the interesting thing about it. You know, kitchen table voting. Very cool.
Right. Well, we actually don't have all the additional information we thought we were going to have about the ranked choice voting. And so, unless you have information that you'd like to present, we...
I'm just here for the ride. Counting on Austin.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So John, you probably saw in the email, you know, we were expecting to get the new draft from Dean right after that meeting we had a couple weeks ago.
Something came through.
It did, but this week. So he passed along to Barbara, but just in the mix, it got slowed down. And so Meg texted me this morning and said, I haven't had a chance to look at it. I haven't had it. It's been busy. You've been working on
You were supposed to
SW.
look at these before the meeting.
So Felix had said, oh, let's set it for October 8th. If you guys can get it done, then I don't want to postpone it again. But I think we both feel like this is confusing and we want to get it right. So I think you and Meg and I should review it, and Barbara, and then we'll get together as a little work group again. And I can send an email about that, suggesting times, and then we'll postpone it a little bit. Does that sound good to you? Okay.
Well, and I
Thank
think
you, Mr.
Moose
Chair.
season will be over, so we'll...
And Dean will be
probably have
back, and-
More people available
Barbara, are you about to
to
leave?
those meetings.
I will be gone though. So
What are your dates?
October 10th through November 1st.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
I'm going to send an email to you all, but I'm going to Africa.
Wow.
Good for you.
Thank you. So I will not be answering email.
When are you going to Africa?
October 10th.
October 10th.
Oh, wow.
So that means maybe first meeting in November? Should we have
Yeah.
it? Let's introduce
Or we
it.
try to,
Hey,
I mean, we have, oh, sorry, may I miss?
Go ahead, Mr. Davidson.
I mean, we have this draft, so I think October 10th is still 2 weeks away. If we all look at it and it looks good, I mean, we could say, cool, let's go forward.
Yep.
If we feel like we can't resolve it, then we can wait, I think. This will be the
So-
longest ordinance ever.
Through the chair, Ms. Quinn Davidson, if you will send us some dates for a meeting,
I will.
we'll get it set up.
I'll do that. Yeah. Great.
Well, so what part of Africa are you going to? That's one of the places I haven't been to yet.
Yeah, I actually, through the chair, I got involved with Amnesty International when I was probably 18. And I met some people from South Africa in a panel discussion that we did at college. And I always wanted to go to Africa ever since then. And I actually met the bishop from Mozambique, and he spoke French. And so I helped him sometime after that. And so I've always wanted to go. So I'm only going to Kenya.
Oh.
And we're going to the Masa Mari and a couple of other camps. We're going to
Awesome.
go to the Karen Blixen House and in Nairobi.
What's that?
Karen Blixen, I think she's the one that wrote Out of Africa. And so,
Wow.
Eugene's leaving.
Excellent movie if you haven't seen it. It's probably
It's
before
a
your
really,
time, Mr. Dunbar.
Catherine Hepburn, right? Is it Catherine
No,
Hepburn?
it wasn't Catherine Hepburn.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Oh, I thought it was, wow.
When I was in college, Desmond Tutu came and spoke at our school. I got to shake his hand. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like quite a trip, and you deserve 3 weeks off anyway, so.
Well, thank you.
For sure.
So we'll get something set up on ranked choice voting, hopefully, and do one more practice round.
Yeah.
Make sure we all like the language, and then we can get that introduced.
Yeah.
Did we get,
Mr.
somebody else?
Weddleton?
I'm sorry. Moved on from Did someone else look at the wording? They were gonna show-
May-
I mean, Matt's been looking at it, but there were other people knowledgeable, and I thought maybe they could spell it
Yeah.
out point by
Ms.
point.
Quindavis?
May I respond? My understanding, thank you, Mr. Chair, my understanding from Ms. Altel is that, so Dean sent a draft to Barbara and to Matt, and so both Barbara and Matt looked at that, or maybe you didn't. Matt did, and Matt made some edits, and then Barbara sent us the draft from Dean, and then sent us the edits that Matt gave, and then Ms. Altel said, I talked with Bob, and Bob said that whatever we've been working on is probably the best we're going to get from his perspective. Bob, who was here at what's his last name? Batera. So I think that she's sort of communicating with him outside of this process, but we know that Matt's also reviewed and provided edits. So I think the next thing is for the four of us to look at it, read through it, meet one more time, hopefully with Matt if we can, and then go from there.
All right. That sounds like a plan then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, anything else about Title 28 that you wanted to mention today? And we don't have any information about reconciling service area boundaries that I'm aware of. Do we, or do we?
We do. I have a
Oh.
small update for you. So at your last meeting, Mr. Wheeler presented to you that he had contacted the administration with our 26 anomalies. And that has gone to the administration. GIS is working on it. They actually took out of the 26, they just did the park service area, and the response was 85 pages of one service area. And Tina Miller in GIS has sent that to me, Bill Falsey, property appraisal, interestingly, and then probably, is it Bob Dole in planning? And Dennis Wheeler and Becky Wynn Pearson. So the group has gotten quite large. And we are all meeting on October 7th
Okay.
to begin the discussions. And so the reason that it's such a big group is because Tina is saying, oh, you guys are right. You know, GIS has this parks line going like this, but the tax thing goes like this. And so they made the tax area not match the service area boundary because the tax area is matching parcels. That's right. And so now the question is, what is the legal description of that service area? Are we okay? Because in elections, then if this goes like this, we have this person outside the park service area, but it looks to us like the line says they are in. And so obviously it became a much bigger issue than what we assumed it was. Tina has some recommendations that she's made on every one of those 85 pages. She has recommend taking out of the service area, recommend changing the service area. But I think she's invited Bob Dole to that meeting because, and I spoke to Jack, is it Gadamus? Is that how you say his name? Jack Gadamus? Okay, something like that.
Yeah,
We all
very
know.
similar.
Jack the appraiser.
So his question is, well, you've got to go with the tax area. And I said, well, Jack, where did you get the tax area from? You know, we have to look at the legal description, and that's why Falsey invited Becky. It's really going to be down to Becky's decision. And the question is, did somebody put in the wrong service area? Did someone swag a line? So anyway, it's just a huge relief to me that, you know, Amy saw me pulling my hair out at when we're trying to assign ballot styles and, you know, decide what ballot style a voter gets. And my biggest concern is down up on the hillside when I end up with one house in one of those ballot styles, you know, if that comes back, people know how that person voted. And so we've gotta, and then there's some of them that I just put like 999. I can't assign a ballot style because it just makes no sense. So we just have to get all of this reconciled. So we're making great progress, but I think it's a little more complicated than even we thought.
So Mr. Weddleton and then Ms. Quinn Davidson.
I think the good news is with that line, you saw the fire service area, the park service area, and building safety service area with that hillside line. But you know, I've never seen a rationale for where that line came from. It was just during unification, there was no one up there, it was a bunch of, you know, homesteads, and they just drew that angular line. We looked at it carefully, we did the hillside district planning, we went, what the heck is this line? And could not find any rational basis.
And for informational purposes, and John probably knows this, back in the good old days, they didn't have addresses on Hillside.
Starving.
They had SRA numbers. And and it was, when you went to the post office, you got a number, and then the next person got a number, but where you lived had no correlation to what your SRA number was.
It's like a terrible.
And it was absolutely insanity.
Not very helpful.
When I was working at the Anchorage Times, the people that had that Hillside district were delivering papers based on people's SRA numbers, not on their address, because they didn't have addresses. There weren't street signs up. People didn't have numbers on their houses. It was pretty very challenging.
I don't know if that sounds like the good old days,
Well,
in some
that was
respects.
back in the days before computers.
Yes.
Well, before normal person, everyone had a computer.
Yeah.
Did you have something?
Oh,
you wanted to-
this is probably, I don't know if it's that helpful, but you know, this is the kind of work that I do professionally, real estate, and also work with mappers to buy or otherwise acquire interest in property. And so a lot of what I do is evaluate legal descriptions and work with the GIS folks to depict that. And I guess I just wanted to say that there are a lot of errors in GIS because GIS is not as precise as legal descriptions. And so if there's some comfort in but then John made me think, I don't know that I have comfort if this line is just made up. So I kind of, anyway, I think there's a lot of opportunity to correct things and to, if you dig in, although perhaps not based on John's comment.
So you think the GIS is not as accurate?
Well, I just think it's really common that GIS, you know, a mapper to use GIS to make a map has to draw those lines and sometimes, or borrow data from other sources that sometimes the lines don't match up. And so I think there are inherent conflicts and challenges with mapping that is best checked by the underlying legal description and documents. And so I guess it was meant to provide a little comfort that, like, if there are some errors there, that's normal, and I think we can fix it, and knowing that it's a problem and having the right resources, we can resolve it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weddleton and then
Just,
Mr. Dunbar.
Barbara, you said that ultimately it'll come down to Becky, but I think Suzanne and I should take a look at it when you get near there and just know what's going on, because not a lot of, you cut through places that are developed now. I mean, Bear Valley is that park service area is complicated, but before you come out with a solution, we'd like to see.
I'm happy to help too if you need people.
Mr. Dunbar?
Did you say 80 pages for one service area?
85.
How many service areas do we have to go through?
Well, you know, I think we have issues with parks, fire, Chugiak Fire, TAPSA probably. Those are the ones that we have the biggest issues with. There
So-
may be a couple with ARDSA, you know, where ARDSA connects to the hillside.
So
but-
it's not 85 with one LURSA. That's not what we're talking about.
No, it's 85 with parks.
Okay, so yeah, because if it was 85 like per LURSA, then I think we'd be in a lot of trouble. Have you thought about? Actually, I don't know. Has Dennis Wheeler been working on this?
Yes, so Dennis presented to you at the
Right,
last
checked on that.
meeting, and so I contracted with him to
Okay.
do this. I think it was a very small contract, and
Yeah.
RDI does do some GIS work. And then when Dennis presented to you on redistricting or malapportionment for the assembly, I tagged a little onto this contract. So, you both have mentioned the issue. I suspect there may be a question about some resources.
Yeah.
And, particularly 85 adjustments for one of 5 sets of problems.
Yeah.
I think we may need some resources to assist. I don't know if that means that GIS needs to hire a contractor to address these.
So that would be I was just thinking that would probably be
Yeah.
my preference. And when you start talking about, we're using up Becky Wynn Pearson's time, we're using up Bill Falsey's time, we're obviously using up your time. These are like very highly, these are very precious resources, particularly Becky Wynn Pearson's time. I don't know what you bill that at, but it'd be very, very expensive. And so I think we should look, but hopefully the administration is the one who provides the resources, not the assembly, because this is their issue too, right? And this is their service areas just as much as it's our balance, no?
Through the chair, I think that's an interesting question. GIS provides services to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think Ms. Quinn Davidson was correct. They ingest data and then they put it back out. So they are ingesting data from probably the CAMA system, if that exists, or legal descriptions from whatever Bob Dole's group is, and then they are giving that back to us in elections. And we are one of the customers of GIS. We're a major customer. We're part of the GIS policy group. And now we're saying, we don't like the data that you're giving us. And GIS is saying, well, we have like 2 people in GIS, and
Yeah.
you just gave us a giant problem. So I think elections is going to have to provide that resource.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Weddleton?
Well, I guess that's what I was thinking. I actually talked to Tina yesterday morning, maybe, Monday.
Who's Tina
Monday
talking?
morning, about GIS.
Oh, at GIS.
And it was interesting, but she seemed very positive about like, oh, this is a challenge. So seemed to have a good ad, not like, oh, this is a burden. It's like a GIS challenge. But I guess GIS, if it's area wide, because you have to be careful with those service areas. Are you spending, fire service area money figuring out stuff for outside of the fire service area and so on? But if GIS, I guess that's not an issue then. But I'd rather have someone paid than the assembly. But you do have to watch what service area it's sharing money with. But how much money are you thinking? Is it another 10,000 or out of zero?
No. I think we're talking like in the 10,000 might be more than enough. I just have no idea, but I just suspect that, Tina's got a group of 3 people.
Yeah.
And I just told you about 85 issues. So I don't know who would be the person to do that. I don't know if it would be RDI. I don't know if it would be some other contractor that Tina has in mind. But but I'm just thinking there may be some need for resources to get this fixed. We could continue to limp along as we're doing, but I wouldn't recommend that because of exactly what you said. I'm not worried about spending fire service money. What I'm worried about is having someone in the park service area voting on a park service bond when they are really not in the park service area, or someone that's being taxed in the park service area, not actually in the park service area.
Mr. Weddleton?
Well, everyone votes on a park service bond, whether you pay it or not, because it's your, giving the full faith and backing of the New York City. That's why everyone votes on it, even if you don't pay for it. So like I vote
True.
for it.
That is true.
Hillsiders
Thank
vote on
you.
Arts and bonds. So that happens, but it does need to be cleared up as we develop properties up there. If you're splitting a parcel in half and someone subdivides it, then you have your problem will only grow if it's not figured out. And I would almost think, okay, we have a straight line. We don't know how that came about. Can we fix that and go start parcel by parcel? So then your GIS is easier. and you're gonna flip a few people, but we need to think about how to, you know, if you have to change a boundary for service area, it goes to a dual majority vote. And I don't know if there's a way to, that'd be tough, but, you know, it would be, take that line and make it follow parcels, because that's how you'll subdivide it ultimately.
Well, you know, and the reason that this all came about, or one of the reasons, is because of the number of ballots that we end up having to print, and trying to make sure we have the ballot in the right place when the person shows up to vote there. And they may decide to show up at an accessible vote center, and if they're one of a limited number of people for a certain ballot, and that ballot is not at that accessible vote center, then we have a problem. So then, you know, we're ordering more ballots than there are people that are in that area to vote by a significant margin, I believe. And so that's creating additional expense, much less, not to mention the headaches.
Through the chair, we've tried to address that issue, and what we've done is if there's 50 or fewer registered voters in a ballot style, it's not a service area, we do not print any ballots for those anymore. And we have a thumb drive that all of the ballots are on the thumb drive, and it goes to the accessible vote centers. And then the thumb drive is secure, right? Isn't the thumb drive on a secure?
A lanyard.
A secure lanyard for the chair, so the chair keeps the thumb drive. And then we have an Okidata printer that Amy was mentioning. And when that voter comes in, they go to the Okidata printer and print the ballot. So it's like a ballot on demand.
I see.
But it saves us a lot of money because we have 6 accessible vote centers, and probably about 30 or 40 of those ballot styles that have less than 50 voters.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we've actually made a little progress in that, because we were printing ballots for all those just a couple of 3 years ago, right?
We were printing 25 times 5 accessible vote centers times all of the polling locations where that was. So we were printing hundreds of those ballots.
And so that became a challenge and a headache for the printers as well. You had to get all those details correct. If you print the wrong thing, then I can just see lots of problems could be created there, no doubt. Well, I'm glad that we're making some headway in this service area boundary situation. And you have additional information?
One other comment. This is on your agenda because I think this is your issue. I think this committee has to give me direction on this. So even though we're working with the administration on this issue, we're going to come back to you. And I know, Mr. Weddleton, you asked if you and Suzanne could look at it, and Ms. Quinn Davidson brought up her expertise. We will bring it all. And Mr. Dunbar, made it clear that he doesn't want us spending Becky or Dennis's time. We will bring this back to you and continue to ask for direction.
All right, fantastic.
Well, so has your conversation talked about refining that angled line and not using it anymore, or are you trying to say this is sacred and we can't change it?
Through the chair, Mr. Weddleton, I don't know the answer to that question. All I'm saying is that in elections, we use service areas because you vote, we have the in and the out on those parks bonds. So we're sending the ballot to people in the service area or a different ballot to people out of the service area. So we have no preference for the line. We're just following the line that we've inherited.
Yeah, but some parcels are cut in half. If it's not affecting you now, it will as soon as they put homes there. Then a subdivision, the guy across the street will be out in the park service area.
That's not a problem for us. So we have a system now where the person on this side of the line gets one ballot, this side of the line gets the other ballot. The problem is when we went to put the sample ballot styles on the map, GIS doesn't match us. So we have a difference there. But we're limping along and getting the right ballot style to the voter. So I'm telling you, I don't know the answer. I don't know if the service area lines that we've inherited, I don't know if those are correct. So I do recall that some time ago when Dennis Wheeler was municipal attorney and we had this dilemma, he said, follow the tax districts. So we were using the tax districts. And so I think we're just at a point in technology where we have the ability to see the difference between the tax district line and the service area line. And someone has to decide what is the correct legal boundary for the service area. How does that affect parcels? And I'm just the data inputter on this. I'm not the decider, but that's why we'll bring it back to you.
Okay,
Should be interesting.
sounds like it will be, or it is. All right, fantastic. Any other discussion or questions about reconciling service area boundaries? All right. I think we've got time for some audience participation. Or do we have anyone who wants to participate? Mr. Haberman?
All I'm going to say real brief is my name is Eugene Carl Haberman, and I was present for the entire meeting. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess we're ready for adjournment. Committee will be meeting again next month. Thank you.